Cool. Hello and welcome to the Holy Hour, the bi-weekly All Cure podcast. I'm Gavin and I have a wonderful show for you guys today. I'm joined by Antonio and our very special new buddy. How's it going, Francisco? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Antonio. Super stoked to be in on this super fan podcast. Hey. I've been listening to it since episode 1 and since 2020.
All right.
Early 2020, yeah, 2023.
Started at the beginning? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, well, I've skipped around.
Yeah, good. It's like, man, you deserve a medal if you've suffered through all the...
Well, I do one a day, and it's like, it's just like I'm getting context. I've learned so much.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know about those 5 new tracks,
Yeah, so all kinds of stuff. Cool. Well, it's been awesome getting to know you and corresponding. And I don't even know really now, thinking back, what instigated it, but it was one that we always had on the burner to talk about Trilogy. And I think you had mentioned that you had just recently revisited it and, was like, we haven't done a full-on feature of it. And then I remembered I had talked to Tom recently. We had the origin story from Tom at the end of the year, and he had mentioned he was at the Trilogy show. So I was like, oh my God, this is like getting the gatekeeper and the keymaster together. We got to have everybody here. We're going to cover all the time zones and master plan. And unfortunately, it turned out in the last minute there that Tom couldn't make it tonight for work. But so we have a very special story time from Tom, first-hand account of his time at the Trilogy shows that we'll read to you guys at the end of the episode. But we're going to hash it out best as possible beforehand and delve into this epic moment in Cure history when they put out the Trilogy DVD and try to piece together the history best as possible. It's coming up on the 20th anniversary, believe it or not. So that's pretty wild. I wasn't even aware of that. You tipped me off to that. I was like, oh my God, it's been 20 years since that thing came out. So
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and it's not only a thing in Cure history, but like just in music history in general. Like, I don't think any other band has done 3 records one night on DVD, put out there like that. I mean, that's like,
it's a good point.
That's epic doing 3 records, like, because definitely something to be said about that. Even just from a music industry standpoint, it's something that I think is a major feat.
It's pretty wild for sure. Around that time, people started doing the one album kind of anniversary thing where you're playing it in its entirety. And, I think it was around this time that started to be a bigger thing. And we'll get into what inspired Robert even to do this. But, then taking it to that Cure level, as he often does, where he's like, we're doing 3 of them in a row, all of them. Yeah. It's like, whoa, geez, dude. So it helps that those early albums are a bit on the shorter side.
I think it would have been a bigger... Yeah, I think it would have been a bigger deal too, if this was done today, due to social media and the way that it be spread like that.
Yeah.
Like I don't even think at that time it wasn't that well publicized, really.
Yeah.
At least not here in New York. Like, I don't remember it being a big deal. Like, I remember just walking past it at Tower Records and being like, oh, holy. Whoa, when did this come out? But now you'd hear about it, in advance, like, and it'd be a big deal, and it'd be written about in all the, blogs and magazines, and 3 albums.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, I feel like due to the time, it was kind of downplayed.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that was my question to Tom. Like, how did he hear about it, and how, like, he was just like a handful of fans. I mean, it seemed like a small show, 3,500.
Yeah.
How did he get tickets? And he was like, oh.
Yeah, I wonder how grueling it was to, like, because this was still early enough where you weren't, I'm sure it was internet, but at the same time, was that the go-to way to get tickets already by that point? I guess. Can't really remember when that crossed over as opposed to just I was always still just buying them at the venue all the time, you know. So I didn't really do any like international travel for shows or anything like that. So it's hard to say, but
well, I mean, it was definitely at minimum, it was before, like digital robots could buy them up real fast. So, like it's not like today where it's like, something sells out in 3 minutes and 50% of those tickets were bought by an algorithm that then resells them.
Which subcategory episode we wanted to do when we were talking. It's like, how the hell do you battle the robots now? But and also just in Cure history and perspective of where they were at after Blood Flowers and stuff kind of makes sense of why it wasn't blown up all over the place, like just remember really hearing. I heard that they were happening, but it never really even crossed my mind to take a international trip to go to this thing. As awesome as it sounded, I just kind of like, oh, that happened, cool. I'll get the DVD, So yeah, it never crossed my mind. So pretty rad. I guess before we dive into the specifics of the show and the DVD and all that good stuff there, it would be cool just to hear where you came in on the Cure, Francisco, and a bit of your origin story as far as how far back does it date, and what was the first thing you heard?
Okay, well, I think you and me, Gavin, are about the same age or so because I've been listening, and so. But there's something really strange in my origin story, which is in Spain. So my elementary school years, I was living in Spain near Barcelona.
Okay,
and then middle school, I was in Colombia, in Bogota. I'm Colombian.
Okay.
And then I moved to the US in 1991. But there was this show for kids from the national TV, and you can Google this. It's called Bola de Cristal, Crystal Ball.
Okay.
And it started in '84, and it's just like Labyrinth. It's like the same look, but it's this chick. Well, sorry, this artist that became huge, but she has this Robert Smith gothic look, and it's for kids.
Oh wow!
And if you look at all the YouTube comments, because I was like, I've heard Lullaby in that show. I want to say, I don't know, or something like it. I remember the spiders and something, and it was like juggling my mind. So from the beginning, I was already like gothic from the get-go. It was in my blood. Yeah. And so
my wife's from Colombia. I got to ask her if that's, and it's funny because Lullaby is like her favorite Cure song. So I bet that's probably where that comes from. That's it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It was like ahead of its time, I think, and it was very open. They talked about weird stuff like you would never show, anyway.
Yeah.
But so I go to Colombia and it's just pop and salsa, which is like the basic stuff. It's your father's generation, and you go along with it. You don't disrespect it, but I wasn't exposed to rock that much. It was just pop.
Yeah.
And it's when I get to the States that I just full on just fall into grunge. I fall into punk. I fall into my very first Cure is Wish cassette tape.
Yeah,
I remember the sleeve. It like caught me, and I was just I don't think it was on the radio. I was in Phoenix, and so I know there's a lot of other contributors that are from Phoenix area, early '90s. And the radio stations, played, Friday I'm in Love, but it didn't catch it. The song that's kind of like your pictures of you, Gavin, is Trust.
Yeah.
I have like this memory where my very first girlfriend, when I was 16, we would slow dance to that in the morning before going to school, and I would just take her and it was, and that was it. After that, I started slowly collecting. One of my second purchases was in Orange VHS,
right?
And I was crushed when he takes off the hairpiece. I'm like, oh, I want to see him with the big hair.
Awesome.
And so. But then I had a fallout, for many years because after Wish is I went, it was the next, I just couldn't connect. Like
with Wild Mood Swings.
Exactly. Wild Mood Swings. I remember seeing Robert Smith on the Letterman show and they made fun of him. I remember exactly he's like, oh, depressed waiter from New Jersey calling in about Robert Smith, and he said it to his face, and then he's wearing these hockey jerseys, and but it's my first show in Phoenix. I go to that tour, and it was it changed my mind. I was crying. I was I was all dressed up like Tom in this show. I looked at the set list and on the website, and it took me back. And there's a bootleg recording.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So anyway, and then fast forward to 2023, man. I mean, it's like that. It took me that long to come back to the Cure.
Oh, wow, cool.
and really enjoy Blood Flowers, a self-titled album, all those albums that I loaded. I just never even bought them. I never even listened to it. I just turned it off. And like a lot of people say, it just touches your soul. And the lyrics, you're a grown person, and I mean, just I am enjoying it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, you get to kind of rekindle all the love there. When you did backtrack after the initial Wish there, did you just kind of gobble up the albums as you found them, or did you have a strategic approach? Did you go in order or anything?
No. So I was super lucky. I had an independent record store 2 blocks from my house.
Okay.
And this guy was amazing. I at one point I had Let's Go to Bed, which is one of my favorite vinyl. I had vinyl, I had VHS, I had books, I had everything. I collected everything. I mean, I was insatiable. Disintegration was has always been on my phone. Just the older stuff has always been on my phone. But and then there was a time when I don't know, Phoenix hasn't always been the mecca for. Actually, in fact, Robert Smith mentions in Trilogy, he's if he was to play Kiss Me, he would go to maybe Barcelona, and then he mentions Phoenix. He compares Phoenix and New York. He's like, I just wouldn't be the same. I wouldn't be able to play a show in Phoenix because it's just so,
it's just hot and sunny and
I know. I thought it was kind of funny when he said that and made that comparison. I was like, oh wow,
that totally made sense too, because I always wondered that, and then it got me all worried for the new album and how heavy and sad all the songs are. I'm like, oh no, they're not going to do a summer tour now because he's saying if he wants to feel depressed and I'm like, wait, why am I listening to anything he's saying in an interview? It's like getting ahead of myself. But that's awesome. Do you remember what the initial appeal was that really made you click with him?
I think there was, Wish was so powerful. The lyrics, his look.
Yeah.
I was a swimmer. And so every year we would shave everything for competition. And this is my story that how the Cure got me in trouble. And so I'm in Phoenix, right? This is a very conservative town. And I on those days when I shave, on those times when I shave, I would put on stockings and I would cross dress and wear lipstick, and it was more like a Frankenfurter look, but it was still very Robert Smith. I had this Wish long sleeve black T-shirt with the Cure logo on the sleeve. I love that T-shirt. I wore it everywhere. Everybody knew in that high school that I was #1 fan of the Cure. And everybody was in the Pearl Jam and all these other stuff. They weren't in Nirvana. There was very few Cure fans. So the principal calls me, and I happen to be in shop, car shop, and they have those. You wear that jumpsuit. So I come over, and they're like, "No, this is not the guy. He's not wearing a dress." And and he's like, I was like, "No, I am wearing a dress underneath." And the principal says, "You're gonna get jumped by the football team if you don't change right now." And that stayed in my file from all through high school and college and everything. And I was friends with those guys, those jocks, because I was a swimmer and I was, I was a part of, and they were good. They were gonna beat me up. And it kind of reminds me when you were talking about like in the bus and like, this rednecks would like call you out or in the bar and like take off that man shirt or whatever. I don't know. Like people just so intolerant, but that was like, that was crazy. The one time. I laugh about it now.
When the cure and the sports worlds collide. Yeah, I remember I played football too, and then there'd be like all like playing like Maiden and stuff to get pumped up before the game. They're like, what do you want to put on, Gavin? And I'm like, put Letter to Elise on and stuff. It's like, I'm focusing, man. Just like, all right, never gonna ask him again. Jeez, bumming everybody out before the big game. But I was like, no, man. But so yeah, maybe we should shift those gears then to the actual DVD of Trilogy. Like we said, it originated from Robert Smith, even just being a fanboy of sorts and seeing Bowie on his Heathen tour in 2002, I believe, where he played all of that and most of Low, and it got him thinking, this would be kind of cool to do something like that. And I guess they're fresh off the heels of the Dream tour there, and he had kind of said from the beginning, I guess. I remember hearing about it more after this was coming up than when Bloodflowers first came out, but apparently it was always in there. The idea of the trilogy and the albums are all connected, and seemed like the no-brainer if he was going to pick three, that was the route to go. So yeah, they recorded, let's see, so they did the 3 nights. One was in Brussels, but I don't know if that one was ever kind of with the idea if they even filmed that at all. I didn't see any real evidence. It was more of like the warm-up one or something where they'd played definitely Trilogy, but wasn't part of the DVD. So I don't know if they filmed it and just were like, let's do it.
Well, on Setlist, it says that they hadn't played Short-Term Effect since 1982. Yeah. 20 years. So, I mean, I'm sure they were like, let's give this a go and see how it feels before we do the actual DVD. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think they recorded it because in the interviews also, like Robert Smith said, we only have 2 takes.
Yeah.
So if we mess it up both nights, so I don't think there was any recording going on that first night in Brussels to just kind of, that was like work out the kinks and just, and it was cool because they even mentioned like they felt better about it and it gave them a different confidence going out on the other 2. The fact that they pulled it off.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a smart move to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I really like that Robert cam, which in one of them shows both shows at the same time. And that was another Tom question, but he answered it because he went to both shows.
Yeah.
But I could see the Mexican flag and the Russian flag on one of the shows. And it just seemed like it was a hell of a party. Like the other one was a little bit more, like, I don't know, probably they were both crazy good, but, like one seemed more raucous.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but that's gonna and there's the interviews that go along with the 3 shows on there too, if anybody is rusty on the DVD or whatever. So there's definitely a really cool, we'll talk about that more at the end too, but a good batch of interview and some hidden features. But yeah, the DVD would consist of the 3 albums: Pornography, Disintegration, Bloodflowers, and then a good lengthy interview that is pretty cool. The lineup is the Robert Gallup, Perry, Jason, Roger lineup from Bloodflowers still, which is pretty rad when you think of, Bloodflowers being the only one originally with that whole lineup. But they still, pull it off and in a different way and all the right amount of variations on that. So yeah, the initial night was, November 11th and November 12th of 2002 is when they would record the 2 nights that would end up on the DVD. The Tempodrome, is that how you pronounce it? Tempodrome Arena in Berlin. Even punching in pronunciation things for Tempodrome, it was Tempodrome. So, they said. I was like, okay, I guess I'll say it like that every time it comes up. So Tempodrome, Berlin. And yeah, it seemed like they had the two nights to pull it off, like you said, and it would release 6 to 7 months later. It wouldn't come out till June of 2003. So I guess when we say it's the 20th anniversary, we're talking about the 20th anniversary of the release of the show. So to be technical. And then it eventually would come out on...
Did you guys know if the Smith Music Company was that their first like thing? I'm just guessing because I had never seen that on credits. The Smith Music Company.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird too. I was surprised by that, where he called it that. Yeah, and they were still technically on Fiction at that time. It's Eagle Video, but that's just like the DVD distributor. But yeah, that caught my eye too.
It is on live DVDs. Well, so from a music industry standpoint, the labels don't own the songs; they only own the actual physical recording. So that might be the quote unquote publishing company that was just made up now for if that any video or audio got used from the DVD so that it just went to them, because you could essentially they could go into the studio tomorrow and re-record Pornography, and the original label that put it out has no say in that whatsoever, because it's not the recording it's only the physical recording that's owned. So that's probably why they had to come up with like a quick like maybe LLC or something for the copyright now of that actual what's getting released.
That makes sense.
That's probably why it had to be like a quick oh well, this is not going to be the label, it's good, and it's a new technical set of recording, and so there's all kinds of weird stuff.
It's a good point. Thanks. Because now I'm looking at the case here, even it doesn't say Fiction anywhere on it. It's kind of cool. Maybe somewhere real small, but that's pretty cool. So they must have. I
wonder if the Blu-ray has other things that the DVD doesn't. I don't know. I read a review on IMDb that said something about like you should listen to it with headphones, kind of like the Wish reissue. I took that tip from you guys. I was listening to headphones and so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, once they did the Blu-ray, they did all of the really cool like split stuff, so you can hear different things in different ears and like stuff fading in different directions. Yeah, because I had read that too. Because I had the DVD and it got wrecked and completely ruined, and I never bought the Blu-ray. Because to be honest with you, I never got super into buying Blu-rays, but now after rewatching it, just because there's such good, digital HD copies on YouTube, and I have YouTube on all my televisions, I never bought it. But after rewatching and rediving in, I'm like, man, I think I'm gonna buy the Blu-ray on eBay or something.
It's odd because I distinctly remember too. I don't feel like anybody really ever talked about that since, but when it came up, and I felt like I did really look into it because I was like, oh crap, I bet they're going to throw some extra stuff on there, so I'm going to have to buy that too. And I remember thinking it wasn't different, but then he actually even posted something saying, don't buy it. Like, he was like, it wasn't meant to be shot in Blu-ray or anything. He's like, nothing's different. It was like an actual statement from the band or Robert. I felt like it was all in caps at the time or something. I don't know if he ever flat out said don't buy it, but it was just like, so-and-so's re-releasing on Blu-ray. There's nothing different about it. And he was really downplaying it. So I was just like, all right, well, fuck that.
Yeah, but Blu-ray is using that. I don't think the DVD is Dolby Digital, and I think that's where the difference is in that audio,
the sound,
where you're going to hear things split up, so if you've got the multiple speaker thing going on, and a subwoofer, you'll hear it on your television, but if you do listen to it, through headphones, you'll hear it different, because the DVD is probably straight down the middle. You're hearing the same in right and left,
Interesting. So it's going to be a huge get it now before this goes out, where everyone's going to be snagging them up off of eBay, the Blu-rays there. So, but it is 223 minutes too, almost 4 hours. So it's definitely a lengthy chunk of time there. And do you guys remember then when it was released and having that first viewing of or when you got it and anything like that? Any early initial memories?
like I said, I kind of walked by it accidentally and was like, oh my God. And I didn't really know too much about it. Um, in that, like, 2003, I was kind of, I don't know, I was still touring, like, on and off, kind of playing music and doing things to the point where, like, I wasn't like fully paying attention, and I also like fully wasn't just like dropping money, because I mean, I'm trying to remember, but the ticket price on it, you know what I mean? It was expensive. DVDs were expensive even still then,
Yeah.
So like I remember buying it then years later when a record store on Long Island was like closing down, and it was like on sale, and I was like, no way, so it's like I didn't have that initial like grabbing it when it came out. And also, to be honest with you, I mean, aside from The Cure, like, I was never big on live stuff. But I've got to say, in being older and now, seeing so much more and listening to so much more music and going through things, I've learned to really appreciate live music much more. I feel like, that was something more for, like, the Deadheads and the big Pearl Jam fans, because I know they're a big band that was always like being bootlegged, but I never like went too crazy. Like, I had the Cure is the only band where I think I ever like legitimately was like, let me get this live stuff. But I mean, they definitely do it. God, I think they do it better than anybody else.
Like, it's really surprising.
They do.
How about you, Francesco?
Yeah, I got it from the library.
Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, the good old library.
Well, I'm a librarian, so I was like, we don't have music, but the sister library next to us does. And I have to shout out that library because they have a pretty deep collection of Cure. I think whoever collects is like a huge Cure fan, because they have a lot of the deluxe CDs. They have Trilogy and
awesome.
Yes, yeah. I was like, whoa, this guy. Nice. I almost went over and said, look, you can have my Wish 30-year anniversary and like put it in the collection, because I just put it in digital.
Yeah.
And like you can have my Entreat, Paris, and then do the rest of the collection. Right. But hey, I'm keeping them now. This time around, I'm keeping them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you can get the Blu-ray Trilogy right now on eBay for $15.99.
Nice.
Unopened.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, I didn't have a DVD player, so in order to see the features, you have to have a remote control. So I went and got a Blu-ray on Craigslist, but whatever, like. So I was like, oh yeah, I gotta see these because we're talking about it.
Right. Oh, man.
And then I saw it on YouTube, like remastered, like no commercials. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's got the DVD menu hidden track things, where it's you go up, down, left, right, ABBA, and you can do the what is it? It's outtakes from the interview and camera angle weird. It's an odd choice of hidden feature stuff where it's not like extra tracks or anything. It's like the same deep water as you kind of fisheye camera. You can do it for other shots, I guess, is what it was. I didn't go back and relive all that magic, but
Plain Song 2 has a hidden thing,
hidden camera,
and yeah. So it's like End of an Era. If you go to the right, there's these outtakes where like one of them is like they're asking Simon, like, have you ever met Sid Vicious? And they're just laughing, and I didn't get the joke. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, cool. And, I thought I'd pulled those up on YouTube, but maybe I'll have to go do the hidden feature there. I thought I'd found them on that, and it was easier just to watch them on that. But yeah, it was just like outtakes, I guess, what I saw. So that's funny. So it's a few extra questions and stuff.
Yeah, like funny answers that they weren't gonna add. Like Perry's like, I want a strap-on keyboard, and he's like making a huge thing about it.
Right.
Yeah, that was so funny. That whole thing. Yeah. Just seeing that like funness from him in those moments was I think a really good capture.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean now he is pretty witty on Twitter.
Yeah, he's definitely
like pre social media, like I feel like you didn't really see that side. That was the only time you got to like really see that side of him,
Yeah. Or like the question for Jason, like like what song was the worst song for Jason, and Simon answers, but I can't hear the answer. I was like, what did he say? I was like, I played it back so several times.
Yeah. Like, although I did. It is funny because Simon says at one point like something about Jason messing up, and he goes, "But Jason doesn't mess up."
Yeah.
In a different part of the interview, which again I thought was really cool. He was like, "Oh, well, he doesn't mess up." He was like, but even he admitted to like messing stuff up. But he was like, but he was like, Jason doesn't mess up.
Yeah.
Just the interviews in general are a huge plus of this because it is cool to see the other guys talking so much. That was a huge thing. Just rewatching it again, I was like, oh yeah, you really only get like little sound bites from them occasionally. You don't really get to see them answer a full thought very often, especially Simon. He usually will just mumble something out real quick in any TV interviews you see. You don't really get him kind of sharing a whole thought and finish it. It's like, oh cool, this is really neat.
Like 1-2 word answers. Like just quick little.
Because if anything, I feel like Robert had the least on there. He's got a few little, a couple of really good comments on questions, but for the most part, it's the other guys all answering them. So that's definitely cool and worth a rewatch. If anybody's rusty or hadn't seen those, you can find them. But so I also remember the first viewing was nice for me. I got it. 2003 was a rough year. I was like bad breakup year, but then I met my wife. And or future wife, I guess she should be. And we were just buddies hanging out. And when it came out, we just totally did the whole like her and my brother. We just turned off all the lights in the house and like blasted it like it was a real show in the basement. We all just hung out and watched the whole thing from start to finish. And which hopefully I think kind of sealed the deal because then eventually we ended up going to Coachella together, still just as buddies. And shortly after that, we're like, well, if we're doing all this together, we should probably get married and have a child. And the rest is history. So it's all because of Trilogy, I'm sure. But I knew if she was willing to sit through Trilogy in one sitting, that was definitely a good sign. So I think
that laid the groundwork, the foundation.
But I thought as far as some of the technical stuff too, it was really cool that this director, Nick Wickham, who we wouldn't see in any other Cure stuff. Cure's always really strange in the sense that they stick with the same people. You see him pop back up, and he's very likes to work, familiar face kind of thing. But this director, pretty well-known, successful video director. That's kind of his main thing. He's worked with Madonna, Beyonce, Rihanna in later years, and Foo Fighters. The list is pretty much all the big name heavy hitters. Metallica. Everyone's favorite Cure fan, Shakira. He did a concert video for her. So, he's won awards, the BAFTA and Royal Television Society Awards in the UK for an Iggy Pop concert that he did. And he has a little highlights reel on his website that's pretty impressive. So we'll put a link to that in the Facebook. But and it's cool just seeing it through a different lens than Tim Pope, as much as we all kind of love and associate Tim Pope as the main vision of the Cure, even live or videos. But it is kind of cool seeing it different because Show was a different director too, but I felt like this actually works a lot better than Show as far as like visually. It's very like fast cuts and jerky things that kind of change up from song to song, where it isn't kind of just an overall feel, So I don't know. How'd you guys feel about the directorial work of Nick Wickham?
I was comparing it to Orange, which was a bad comparison because, like they had a third day where there was no people in this. It was just them, and they did some of those takes where the camera goes up and back down. And I couldn't see the cameraman that much. I mean, you see the one for the Robert cam, somebody goes up there and puts the camera, and then Robert like moves it and sticks his tongue out, and but it was really well done. I loved it. Just so cool.
I'm a fan. And then even I'm sure there'll be other comparisons, but even if you just quickly think about like the disintegration portion of it, because we did get the disintegration, live in from the Sydney Opera House. Yeah. So it's like I that was my main comparison to the two, because I was like, all right, well, I now I've seen it, two different people shoot it, and this one was like Quentin, I feel like Trilogy was like Quentin Tarantino doing it, and then later on, I feel like it was more, it was more like you were watching like it's like what's his name from that did Titanic. Like
James
I just
Cameron.
it was very
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like just from it, yeah, James Cameron. Like it was like the difference between a Tarantino movie and a James Cameron movie.
Yeah.
Like both have their things that are good, but I leaned a little bit more towards it. When they were getting the weird wobbly effects and the different things, and some of the shots were just really cool. The way that they were bouncing between the band members, just a little bit better. It was less of that like big overhead, like gigantic feel, and felt it made it feel a little bit more personal. Granted, it was in a smaller venue, but you can still shoot a room to seem as big or small as you want it to shoot. So I did like it. It was a little more personal and intimate, and I think even the band. I mean, it could be the years and years later, but like you said, there was some fun stuff there. Like like it felt different. I think I would. Now from if you just take the Disintegration portion of it, and I had a choice to watch either two, the Trilogy one to me, I think just from a shooting standpoint, is so much better.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
Tom said that it was flawless. Even though he wasn't really in his wits on the second show, but the first show he said it was like perfect. Interesting. Yeah, just the acoustics and everything. You could really hear. I was always saying in my mind, like they should have just released that as a CD.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue into the actual performances on this, and yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's a little surprising, listening back to this, or watching it again, I didn't realize I was gonna be that blown away by it again. But I was really kind of like, the sound and the mixing of it's like really fucking good, and like would have been a great live album, And I'm a little
like
surprised
I would listen to that version of Pornography, all the time. I mean, those Pornography songs. Granted, again, it's not three members, versus now. But you're right. Like it just from a mixing and audio standpoint, I would love, and there's ways we could rip it, but that totally should have gotten put out because it could be one of the best ways I've ever heard Pornography, even with the remastering and all the other stuff. I mean, it's so good.
It's cool just because the energy is really there too. And he says that in one of the little bits in the interview where it's all like it was odd opening with 100 Years because it's so aggressive and coming out like young bands open with rocking songs like that. But he's like, it felt like the young bands, but it's true because I was a little expecting kind of older Cure, where they're just like really tight and in the pocket from the start, but it was a little like coming out blazing, like a little wild too for the Cure. I was like, shit, oh yeah, they still got a little fire under their ass back then. That's nice to see again. Not that they don't have it now, but they're just so professional. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And along those lines too, I made a note of I remember distinctly remembering that when it came out of being the kind of shitty younger me, being like, this is old Cure, it's great, but they're all older now and stuff. And like rewatching it again, they're like so young looking. Everybody looks young and like they sound amazing. Yeah. And then I looked it up and he's like younger than I am now when he recorded. I'm like, shit. It's like, oh my God. But
well, I thought it was even cool too. I mean, Robert Smith said that obviously there have been more since then, but even from 2002, him saying like, this is my favorite Cure lineup.
Yeah.
He says that in the interviews at the end, and I thought that was like, and again, it's Robert Smith and, he changes what he says in interviews all the time.
Caught up in the moment.
But it seemed to be like a very like honest, believable thing, because he even then goes on to mention the other ones, like saying like, it was just three of us originally doing Pornography, and now it's this group, and it was the best it's ever sounded.
Listen, and he even said that too, like in the interview they talk about rechanneling it, and they're a little worried about all the bad shit that came up between him and Simon back in the day during the Pornography tour, and is that going to get rekindled and anything like that. But he was like, but we got to just make a conscious effort to remember it's us doing that. We're not trying to redo it from that moment, and that was cool because it really does sound better. It sounds more like the album, really, because it's full. Like when you listen to old clips from '82 and stuff, it's so thin sounding when it's just the three of them. They're doing this big epic album, but it's kind of cool. You know, I love that for that reason. When you listen back, I was like, holy crap, they sound like a little junky 3-piece that you would see down the road, you know, and that's pretty unique and cool. But when you listen to this, they really fill it in perfectly, you know. There's some of those ones like Hanging Garden in particular, they still kept it real bare bones, but then like having like Perry and Roger come in on the chorus, it just beefs it up, and I was just like, oh, that sounds so good, you know. So.
Yeah, I think it also helps with the energy when there's more than 3 people.
Yeah,
because you know when you've got 5 guys going out there with real energy and real, like, you know, positiveness and bouncing off each other, it just intensifies it drastically. Because even if one person is having a point where, let's say, you know, Simon's like feeling a little bit like iffy on the bass line there, but he knows Jason's really holding it down and the keyboards are there and there's 2 guitars, you're less worried about how that feels. You know, it's, you know, it's like the same way where it's like, I played solo, you know, for years, and part of my whole big thing was like, I miss having those other people that I could bounce my energy off of when I'm playing, you know, with full band. So I think those songs just they have a lot more intensity, you know, even just because I think you're having all those people up there, you know, having that you know, punch makes you want to punch harder.
And just fun. Yeah, you know, you could see like you're saying, if you're just up there playing a solo acoustic show, you could be having all the fun in the world, but you're only really just there by yourself, dancing by yourself.
Like Simon can't always walk up to Robert when he's in mid singing and playing a lead. You know, to like bounce off the guitar. When there's 2 guitars, he can go over and be like, "Yeah, Barry, what's up?" You know.
Did you guys have any others?
Did you get that?
What's that?
That one piece, I can't remember. Tom said that Mary was up in the stands, and he looks up in one of the songs. I believe he's playing song, or no, maybe I can't remember.
Somewhere in Disintegration.
I read that quickly.
Yeah. And we'll read that to everybody at the end there. But there's a great moment where he realizes she's up there watching over it all. It's pretty cool.
That was really cool.
Did you guys
things like that?
Yeah. Did you guys catch any like standout ones from Pornography then that you thought really surprised you rewatching?
No, like I said, I think the overall it just it gives new life to all of those songs, and better, to the point where, like, I was even thinking, because, you know, like I was just saying earlier about re-recording stuff, like I would almost love to hear another studio version of Pornography, like full, with, you know, later years people and a different mix, because it just gave me, and again, that's why I love how much live stuff there is out there from them, because or different versions of songs that we have. You know, like, you know, I'm okay with you keep giving me different versions of the great shit that we love, because, you know, we've played it to death, you know.
And I think he is pretty conscious about that, where it is the different lineups. That's usually a huge, you know, I'll take a live film of any lineup, but, you know, it gets a little old if it was like the same lineup doing them, you know, like over and over again. But now I'm thinking about it, I feel like every live thing that's officially come out has been a slightly different lineup, and that's cool, you know. So
but even also, Simon, you know, the songs.
What's that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, you know the song.
You know what song's coming next. So I think Tom also mentioned something like, people aren't yelling like, "Oh, play, you know, Exploding Boy." You know, it's they're only going to play from like one list. You know.
You know exactly what's coming.
Yeah, and you know, growing up having tapes, you couldn't skip around. I mean, you could if you had a nice Walkman, but I in my brain, the songs are in the order of the albums, and so I can just sing the song, you know, and then the song ends, and I know the next song. It's in my brain. I don't know, they go together. So I really like the Homesick and Untitled back to back. That's always been something really good with that Disintegration. just I don't think you see that very often, but yeah.
Yeah, he's always really good with the sequencing. Mostly later years, there's a few debatable ones, but for the most part, always the sequencing is very key, especially Disintegration. I mean, it's perfect, you know. But at the same time, it's like plain song into Pictures of You and stuff like that. It's just like, oh yeah, you gotta stick to that.
I wish they'd done maybe some of the encores had been like Spilt Milk and Coming Up, you know, songs that were in those albums, but that weren't released everywhere, you know, like.
Yeah, that's a cool later thing, like with the Reflections tour and the Disintegration, like doing the B-sides for it more. I think he probably would have even changed that in hindsight at this point. Like that would have been pretty cool to play some of the B-sides from those as the encore, you know, if he was going to
do it. Well, I think that's why they did that with the Sydney Opera House, like starting with the songs that were the B-sides from that era and, you know, all that stuff, because I think it was one of those like, oh, I should have done that.
Yeah.
You know, like kicking yourself a little later.
They did that on Reflections too, I think, where they played like a fourth on cover that was all the B-sides of each one, you know, because those albums were so short too.
And I love how on all three albums, Simon changes his bass.
Yeah,
like that's the kind of shit, you know, being a music nerd and a musician nerd, like I'm like, oh, okay, well, he chose, you know, the hollow body bass for the Rick for this one, the hollow body for this, you know,
it's
like
the instruments he's from that era. That's like super rad, you know, and this was before they'd gone full Schecter too, but at the same time, I think, it's hard to say. Yeah, and I don't think that happened till like 2004, but yeah, it's pretty rad when he had his old Jazz Masters with the third pickup in there and stuff. You know, I was like, oh yeah, this is him kind of doing that.
So I was, you know, I was re-nerding out about that now, because I think back then that's something that I wasn't paying as much attention to, you know.
And using that weird guitar and Disintegration, I always forget what the hell it is. It's like a National, or it has like a weird name.
With like that crazy head
all the
stock,
billion fucking knobs on it and stuff. He uses that on like love songs.
It's got like more knobs than like a current spaceship.
Yeah, exactly.
On that guitar.
Like, what are you doing with this thing?
Do you even know what they do, Robert?
Who knows? But pretty awesome. And ends Pornography by saying "see you in 7 years," which is very witty, Robert, you know. And Tom kind of touched on that too, not to take away from his story at the end, but he says how he didn't recall there being much chit chat in between the songs. It was very down to business kind of thing. So there's definitely
I mean, if he added the chit chat, they would have been on stage for like 8 hours. Although they did say in the interviews that they did take tea breaks. They took a decent break in between. I wonder how long the breaks actually were.
I think he said because
20 minutes.
20 minutes. He said, which is a pretty good chunk of time. I asked him on the side because I thought it would have been cool. Remember with the Sydney one, how they let the chimes go like super long before playing song? I was like, did they do the chimes like through the whole break? That would have been awesome if it like just kicked in like right at the end of Pornography. And then
I don't know if I would want to hear 20 minutes of chimes standing there with my friends.
Soaking it up.
Or if it was Wish, I would love to hear Tape.
Yeah,
you know, that intro, like before, you know, just getting you psyched
for a 20-minute loop of it. Yeah.
Okay, another 11 years.
I guess it would start to feel like a DVD menu that when you leave the DVD on and the same loop keeps going over and over.
Oh yeah.
Stop.
That's so true.
But so I guess onto that with Disintegration, you know, of course, all of those are pretty flawless and sounded great. I thought Fascination Street sounded surprisingly. I mean, that one always kind of surprised me that it, like, I feel like it shouldn't hit me as hard as it does seeing it live or even watching a clip of it live. Or I'm just like, oh, this song is always so like badass live. But I thought this one, I was like, this is the best version of Fascination Street I've ever heard in my life. You know, sure I say that every time I think it, but at the same time, it seemed like a lot of like grittier tones and stuff. It seemed to have like I don't know. I thought they nailed it on this one. I was just like, that's fucking on. So.
I think it might. I mean, I would need to A and B it more, but I think it might be better than. I think they did it better on Trilogy than they did at Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, I kind of just seemed to have like a little more like, again, kind of fire under its ass or something, where it was just, maybe it was like the quicker camera angles and stuff that kind of get you caught up in it a little more too. And you know, same Deepwater as You was the big one for me watching that set. Just so I was just like, because they changed it up with the big camera face angle, but at the same time, just hearing that and seeing it live is like huge. You know, it's such a like powerful and awesome song that you're not gonna see very often. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I really have an appreciation for all the songs now that, and when I see them live, like you guys said, it's just makes it that much better. I did note that on Pornography, on the song Pornography, looks like Robert's kneeling and he's like playing on his knees, or like, I don't know, you can't really see everything on that DVD, like Tom was saying, like the backgrounds, cool things that happen, like when he looks at Mary up there, you know, things like that. But I was like, oh, what is he doing? Like I've never seen him do that, like kneeling. I've seen Simon and other people do it, but not him.
So
I
guess to backtrack to that one too, Antonio had said at the top, but that one in particular was really badass, the song Pornography, because that's kind of my most kind of throwaway one on the actual album, where it's cool and it sets the mood, but it's just kind of a mess on the actual album. It sounds like the most like a real song. I was like, oh, this sounds like a real fucking song on this. So yeah, that one sounded really cool. But yeah, and I guess going towards even with Pornography, like hearing Short Term Effect and seeing Siamese Twins live, and even a few on Disintegration with like Same Deepwater as You. And he had kind of touched on it in the interview too, saying that it was cool because this is the only time some of these deeper cuts are going to be on anything like a concert film. You know, the only way you're going to do it is if you're showing the whole album. They're not going to be playing live from Hyde Park and bust out Same Deepwater as You probably. You know, it's like, this is the only time this is going to happen. So it is pretty cool to you know, appreciate that this is it in its glory of like being filmed in a thematic way. And so,
yeah, totally.
But and I guess with Blood Flowers, you know, that's kind of the most. It kind of sucks that Blood Flowers is on the second disc, because a lot of times when I'm like in trilogy mode, I'm like, I'm watching it all, and I'll make it through the whole first two, and then I'm like, I'll save Blood Flowers for the next night or so, you know. And it's like,
I did that,
so it never quite gets the love that the other two. I don't know where you fall on Blood Flowers as an album. It's definitely grown on me a lot, and I have a lot of love for it. But it's still not quite there with Pornography and Disintegration by any means. But so I feel like they do it justice though, and it does seem pretty seamless on this in particular, where it doesn't stand out as like a, you know, sore thumb. Oh, and here's our newest album, you know, like how that can be sometimes.
Right, Last Day of Summer, that track just digs on me so good. Like it was, you know, one of those albums I never wanted to listen, but now I have it on my shuffle. I have it on my at work. I listen to everything on shuffle, so I'll play whatever. And Blood Flowers is growing on me big time.
Me too.
Something about it.
I always feel like it's been the slowest of burns, but that one's definitely made the most progress over the years. It's still got its moments. I'm watching Me Fall. I've tried so hard on that song, but it's so long and just feels like it's dragging, you know. I love like seeing Perry just shred it on this one, so that was kind of cool at the end, you know, just like but at the same time I'm just like, my god, this song is so long. Big standout ones from that one last this summer I thought sounded great, and Loudest Sound actually too, like a lot of good basic love in those two songs. I was like, this is awesome.
It's one of those things where like I almost prefer listening to it the way that it is on Trilogy than the record. You know, maybe just because there is so much more to it, which just really is leaning in on like how much production really does change the sound of something, you know, like
it does, because it has like that energy more, you know, like watching it on this, I was definitely digging it more because the album, it's always good to have everything tight and glossy and stuff, but it really does kind of just suck some of the like soul out of it a bit, you know, when you kind of overdo it in the studio, I think. And watching it on this, it definitely made it like as I was jotting my note of like watching me fall, oh, it's still dragging. But then I'm like, ooh, Perry, he's fucking shredding, man. He's doing it. Yeah. It's like cool. Yeah. And it like definitely was, like you said, more listenable, enjoyable at this point on that version. I was like, yeah, I should make a just Bloodflowers version live. Might be the way to go for people that still aren't totally 100% on board with it.
Was Bloodflowers the one album that didn't have any singles?
Yeah, they'd kind of made like Maybe Someday, like a sort of single that they put out, like some radios would play it, but it wasn't like even an official single. They kind of acted like that was an intentional thing because they wanted it to just be a mood album, but little kind of when you're looking at it, I was like, well, what the hell would have been the single, even if you did want to.
Yeah, Ching Chang Chong.
Yeah,
when Robert says that the next album is supposed to be like, we're supposed to, after Bloodflowers, it's going to be so heavy.
Yeah.
And everything. And I'm like, yeah, but then you dropped probably my least favorite of all your albums.
Yeah, I know. He kind of stuck to it where it is heavy, but yeah, it was like, he was making it sound like this super dark, cool, like this is going to be our best. And I was,
he said the heaviest thing ever. And I'm like,
I was like, ah.
I was like, might be the biggest letdown
ever. Cure fans are so dedicated to the details and like everything. They hang on every word, on every detail. I just love it.
Yeah.
And this is what drew me to this podcast, being new and just like learning so many things, like listening to the podcast, and every podcast I learned like 3 or 4 nuggets of things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Like Coral is married to one of Robert Smith's sisters, and they have like 4 kids. And he was a keyboardist on like Psychedelic Furs, which I love. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, like,
it's a tough balance with this show because it is like I always want to throw those things in there, but at the same time too, I always worry that it's like, will anybody listen to the Cure podcast episode 200 and they've heard this or that, so it's hard to decipher who's heard what, over the years. And I don't want to ever be the redundant guys like, well, actually, when they did that, like, okay, nerd.
Yeah. Call me out on it, yeah.
I always have to try to pick and choose those moments wisely to just casually drop, something.
Yeah. I do gotta, break it up a little bit here because I want to get this question in to both of you guys before, we kind of have to wrap up here. If you were going to get a DVD now or concert of 3 Cure records in a second trilogy, what Cure albums would you want them to be?
Oh, good question. I'd want Wish, and I'm biased, but I'd want Wish, and I want oh man, someone said in one of the comments that it should have been like 17 Seconds, Pornography, and Disintegration, because they're like the older stuff, that would have been the trilogy, the original trilogy, but
so I'll give you mine so you guys can still think a little bit. For me, it would be Head on the Door, Wish, and Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
Yeah.
Because I think those 3 would really be incredible together.
Is it the current lineup playing them? Or is it the current lineup playing them? Or
well, it would be because we, it hasn't happened. So we're gonna say yes. Current lineup would be playing it. You can't choose the lineup too.
Okay.
But I think seeing those 3 in a night or even compiled on a DVD would be.
Yeah. You said Head on the Door, Kiss Me, and which one?
And Wish.
And Wish.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Antonio. I think those would be my 3 choices too, because I really there's something about Head on the Door that sort of like pre-tells the stories in Wish, and I don't know. There's just, and Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss. It was just such an epic soundtrack in my youth.
Yeah.
And I have some really good memories, and it's a lot of songs to pick from.
Yeah, because I think those 3 also capture a feeling in a time, that like these 3 albums did on the original trilogy. I think they really kind of encapsulate like another time period, another feeling of the Cure.
I would have to. It'd be tough because Kiss Me's the tough one because I feel like that era didn't get captured on anything. We have Disintegration stuff. We have technically Wish stuff with Show. Even Head on the Door in Orange is pretty close to that era, you know? So it's like, so I'd almost would go with like the Darkest Dark trilogy and do 17 Seconds, Faith, and Pornography. Just to have like that in a row would be pretty rad. Even though they're not my funnest and favorite ones, you know, I kind of would if, you know, want to see Kiss
But you couldn't
Me.
put Pornography on it because it's already been on this one.
Okay, so we're not choosing ones that have been. Okay, cool. Oh, geez. All right, then. Well, I guess that throws it all out the window. And Kiss Me. Yeah. Man. Head on the Door, like, all the way through would be good. So, yeah, I'm pretty close to your choices, I think. I'd like to see Faith.
Okay.
Or just Reflections would be nice to got, because I know they filmed that. They should have put that out on DVD too, the 3 Metric Boys, 17 Seconds, and Faith there. That should be.
Or maybe like the top Japanese Whispers and Head on the Door. That's another one that I think like
Japanese
when they were
Whispers.
breaking out from that super gloomy, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. So good question. So do we have to let you run, Francisco?
I need to pack up and get out of here. I have 6 hours.
Sorry, that flew by.
It was really a pleasure, and I'll be sending you maybe like in the future just like voice memos and stuff, and I would love to contribute more.
Awesome, we'd love to have you back, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always like so much fun to just get, new people's perspective on stuff and everything, and we love it. So, always welcome back, down the road. If you hear that we mentioned we might do a certain topic that hits, just drop us a line.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I want to do. Like, there's so many little things that will come up. Maybe with this new tour, hopefully, they release some US dates. This time I'm not missing out on the concert. So.
Sounds good.
I know we say it all the time, but by the time this comes out, they could have put out an actual date. So this might be old news to people. That's the problem with this not being a live show.
Totally.
So
we keep saying it just so it will make it, jinx it when it's happening. So, sounds good.
I hope. Yeah. All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Francisco.
Talk hard.
Yeah, talk hard, man. Take it
always.
easy.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're still rolling, Antonio. I guess we could wrap it up and just say, I don't know, any final thoughts on Trilogy before we read Tom's epic tale of being there firsthand?
No, I mean, I think just my suggestion to all the listeners is like, I guarantee this is something, because I mean, for me, it's something that I haven't, like, go back and take a dive.
Yeah.
I mean, I just forgot like really how like good of a recording it was. The visuals are great. It is, capturing 3 things back to back like that, and you might re-fall in love with certain songs, or kind of see Blood Flowers in a different light. Again, so it's something that's so worth going back into, and I feel like the DVD doesn't get as much kind of respect. Like, so it's like when they when we got the other Disintegration one that also came with the had the 2 concerts on Blu-ray. That one's great because it also came with the CDs, and that's where I feel like they lost out on this one by not doing the CDs on Trilogy. And I think that's another learning thing that Robert Smith probably regrets, and that's why you got those 2 on CD in that box set. But yeah, if you don't have this in your collection, definitely pick it up.
Get it in there.
They've gotten cheap enough now.
There's no excuse. As much as we're always talking about time machines and shit, this literally is about as close as you can realistically get. Not only is it capturing the time frame from those specific albums, but then the whole thing now is like a 20-year-old time capsule in a sense of the Cure at that era. So it's kind of cool. I gotta appreciate.
Again, we thought they were old then, but they look so young in it, and it's they're all dressed in black. Like every band member. I think it's a special moment in time for the band's 40+ year career. That should get a little more spotlight.
Amen. And so as we leave you, we're gonna segue into story time. Like we said, Tom, who was gonna be on the show, he's been on the show. We'll hopefully have him back on the show soon. But we really wanted to talk to him because he was at these shows, like many of you guys out there, and he was kind enough to write us a detailed description of his memories of going to see The Cure in Berlin. Can't mention the Trilogy shows without firstly mentioning the Hamburg show just 2 days beforehand. I have to mention it because of all the shows I've seen, that one was my all-time favorite, and I know it's a few other Cure fans' favorites too. So I'll lump that gig in with the Trilogy ones, as it was all on the same trip. Accompanying me on the trip was my longtime Cure friend Nige and his partner Carrie. We arrived at London Airport around 6 a.m. and we saw some familiar Cure faces at the boarding gate, dressed in black from head to toe, of course. It was a good start to the trip. These were to be special shows and people traveled from far and wide to be there. I remember it was snowing in Hamburg as we got off the plane, so we quickly ran into what was the smallest airport terminal I'd ever seen, got our bags, and took a short coach trip into the center of the city. We wandered around Hamburg with a seemingly growing entourage of Cure fans and eventually found our hotel. By that time, the snow had stopped, but it was freezing cold. Upon arriving at our hotel, we noticed the hotel right opposite ours had to be a luxury 5-star hotel. Could it be the Cure were staying there? Surely we wouldn't be that lucky. Anyway, just as I was getting ready for the gig, I was actually back combing my hair at the time, I received a message from a Cure friend of mine, Vicky, which says, "They are here, come outside now," or words to that effect. I remember scrambling around trying to look presentable as I ran out of the hotel, and sure enough, there they were, the entire band leaving the hotel to board their bus. The band stopped to speak to the group of us that had assembled. There must have been around a dozen of us. Robert was wearing a shirt that said, "This is my clone," which I found quite amusing. He kindly stopped to have photos with us, and a few people exchanged short conversations with him. The meeting was brief, maybe 10 minutes or so, as the band were headed to sound check. Nevertheless, they were very polite to us, and I remember I shook Robert's hand before he headed off onto the bus. I remember the Hamburg football team were playing a big match that night, as getting to the gig we had to endure a scary few moments heading into the arena, all gothed up, walking through a tunnel, whilst hundreds of noisy football fans walked past us in the opposite direction, chanting football songs. As it happened, Hamburg had been playing their fierce local rivals, and I think they lost. Anyway, we eventually made it to the Color Line Arena. It was to be the grand opening of the arena. I heard that the promoter was a huge Cure fan, so he wanted them to be the first band to play it. The concert itself was amazing, not least because we had no idea what the set list to expect. Was it going to be a Trilogy rehearsal? After all, they had played the whole Trilogy set in Belgium a couple nights before. So when they opened with Want, all bets were off. My friend and I jumped and danced through the entire gig. Our mini mosh pit down the front grew and grew throughout the gig. During the encore, they played A Forest Into Forever, which was the first time and only time I've heard it. They've played 4 encores that night, and by the end of it, we were spent. We returned to the hotel after the concert, where a large group of Cure fans had assembled in the hotel lobby. We all waited around and had a few drinks, and sure enough, the Cure's tour bus returned back to their hotel opposite around 1 or 2 a.m. We all ran across the street to greet the band. It was immediately evident, however, that Robert was not in the best of moods. I distinctly remember his first words to us were, "Don't talk to me." He looked completely out of it. As it turned out, he had done a lot of press that night at the arena due to the fact it was the grand opening, and he was visibly drained from the whole experience. I'm sure the last thing he wanted to do at that point was engage with a dozen or so Cure fans, but fair play to him, he did chat for a few minutes before heading off into the hotel lobby. The next day, we got the train to travel to Berlin in preparation for the Trilogy shows. I remember my legs and feet were aching pretty badly as my friend and I had really gone for it in Hamburg. I did manage to sneak a bit of sleep on the journey, which I was grateful for. So on to Trilogy, night 1. We got to the Tempodrome Arena and around lunchtime. It was a gloomy, overcast Berlin day, a perfect setting for the albums that were going to be played that night. There were already a handful of Cure fans there waiting in the freezing cold. One girl had actually handcuffed herself to the front door to ensure first place in the queue. As it turned out, the faces looked familiar, and it was the Russian Cure fan club that had been right in front of us in the front row at Hamburg. I had decided I would dress as Robert from the Kiss Me era, black jeans, white shirt, and black blazer jacket. Hair like Robert, of course. On the outside of the arena doors were notices to say the show was being filmed for a DVD release. I got talking to one of the Russian girls, Maria. She's the black-haired girl who you see in the first montage of fans on the Trilogy DVD opening credits while applying her makeup. She is also seen on the front row during the opening chords of 100 Years. We became friends for a few years after this. She actually came to visit me in England and accompanied me to a Cure show in London the following year at the Islington Academy. We did see Robert arrive at the venue, and I remember one fan gave him a CD of his own band, but this was a very brief meeting as Robert clearly wanted to get inside. I don't remember many words being exchanged other than Robert thanking the fan for the CD as he was ushered inside. There was a real sense of anticipation in the air, and my friend and I were really excited by the fact we were going to hear lesser played songs such as Short Term Effect, Siamese Twins, Hanging Garden, etc. When the doors were eventually opened to us, after what seemed like an eternity out in the cold, fans rushed through the doors to get near the front. I remember shouts of "Robert! Robert!" from crazed fans running to the front barriers, even though it was still probably an hour or two until the band would come on stage. I also remember a girl getting trapped behind the door as it opened. Thankfully, she was okay and made it back to her group of friends. You could tell a lot of passionate Cure fans from various countries had gathered in Berlin for these special shows, and at times that passion overspilled. I remember this gig being the most crowded Cure gig I had ever attended. You couldn't really move your arms or legs, and it quickly warmed up until it actually was quite hot in there. The arena itself was quite intimate though, only 3,500 capacity. However, the DVD, it looks quite vast. I thought that the band sounded amazing at these shows and gave flawless performances of the songs. 100 Years made for a great, powerful opener. I remember being impressed by the backdrops, though they are not as evident on the DVD. Robert's singing was pretty damn perfect as he belted out an amazing pornography set. When the DVD eventually arrived the following year, it was pointed out to me by someone that my face is evidently during the last few moments of 100 Years. Pretty cool to be on an official release as something to show my kids one day. Between each album there was a 20-minute interval. The band seemed more relaxed playing Disintegration, no doubt because most of the songs were more familiar to them. Robert danced around quite a bit during Last Dance, although this is sadly not picked up on in the DVD. Robert also looked up to the rafters as he played the opening chords of Homesick, and as it turned out, he was looking up at Mary, who was sat right up at the top of the arena enjoying the show. I don't remember any between-song banter from Robert in these shows at all. It was all very serious business. After the first two sets, I had to leave my place in the second row out of necessity. It was so hot and I badly needed a bottle of water. So I went and grabbed a drink and made my way back into the arena where I enjoyed the Bloodflowers set from about the middle of the standing area. There it was thankfully less crowded. Though the Bloodflower set was maybe not as exciting for those of us who had heard a lot of these songs on the Dream Tour, it was still played perfectly and the backdrops were interesting, especially on Where the Birds Always Sing. The encore on night 1, as I recall, If Only Tonight We Could Sleep, and The Kiss. Odd choices perhaps. However, The Kiss had become something of a live epic around that time, after being resurrected on the Dream Tour, and totally blew everyone away. I remember having a look at the merchandise after the gig and that they had for sale. T-shirts of each album individually, and a 4th shirt that had all 3 album covers on it. They also sold a poster with all 3 album covers on it. Sadly, I didn't buy anything though, probably due to the crowds of people, and it was hard to get anywhere near it. So that was it. Night 1 was wrapped up and it was off back into the freezing cold air of Berlin and off to the hotel. Sadly, no meeting of the band experiences that night. On the day of the second concert, my friend and I decided we would let our hair down. Literally. I didn't backcomb it that day. And instead of getting to the venue early, we hit a local supermarket to stock up on some cheap German booze. I think the beer, Von Meister, cost about £30, and the vodka not much more. And much to my detriment, I decided to mix and drink and quickly as I could and get that buzz going. By the time we had illegally jumped a couple trains and got to the Tempodrome, I was a little unsteady on my feet. The pornography set flew by in a flash. I was trying to regroup my thoughts. It literally seemed to last about 5 minutes, but I'm sure it was flawless as the night before. I remember staring up at the ceiling and not recognizing where I was from the previous night. As the gig went on, I was sobering up and able to enjoy another amazing show, but I don't remember too many of the intricate details about it, especially with it being a carbon copy of the previous night. I do vividly remember the additional encore that night of old hits though, Grinding Halt, 10:15, and finishing with Boys Don't Cry. So that's my recollections of the trip. Hopefully you get the idea of what it was like from my perspective and descriptions. It was my favorite Cure trip ever. 3 amazing concerts in 4 nights. Great memories with great people. I think the DVD itself is really amazing. Beautifully filmed, and the songs are performed flawlessly. Robert's voice is great on it. I remember being very impressed how the director, Nick Wickham, put everything together. Loved that sudden camera shift at the beginning of 100 Years, and how they captured the essence of Berlin with the opening credits.
When we think back to all this, I'm sure we will. Me and you, here and now.
All right, there you have it, a first-hand account of the Trilogy shows from Tom. Thank you so much for writing all that out for us, Tom, and having this memory dump that we can relive and walk through the whole experience again with you. Of course, bummed that we couldn't have you on the show, but very grateful that you took the time to write that out for us, and hopefully have you on again soon. And thank you again so much to Francisco for joining us and hashing out this whole DVD and walking Antonio and myself through memory lane of the Trilogy DVD. We hope you guys out there are now inspired to go rewatch this wonderful concert in all its glory. So we're going to wrap up with a shout out to our Patreon crew. If you are interested in joining our Patreon, we recommend you go on over to patreon.com/theholyhourpodcast and check it out. See if it's for you. Tom is one of our members, so you'll be in great company along with Donna and Craig and Jeff Hilton, Jeff Cortland Jones, Sue, Ben, John, Allison, Alan, Dione, Namicio, and Danny, and Coulter. What about Matt Ford, and Letty, and Tom Burns, and John Roberts, of course. All wonderful people and part of our Patreon crew. Dana is also a motion designer and animator. You should totally check out her work. She's got a site called graphics.tv. That's graphics with an X. And there you can see her motion graphics reel. get a little sampling of her work. So maybe you can reach out to her and hire her to do some good work for your business or project and make it look awesome. She's perfect for you. So contact Dana at graphics.tv. And Scott Kroger is the co-host of the Sarlacc Digest. It's the all Star Wars podcast. So if you're a Star Wars nerd like me and Scott, go on over and check them out on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. They do a live show there. You can catch the replays anywhere you listen to podcasts, of course. But catch the live shows. It's great. And there's a chat room going over there called The Pit. And I try to be in there every night I can. If we're not recording or I'm not doing something crazy the next early morning, I'm usually over in there. And you could say hi. It'd be good. We'll flood it with cure people. Mandalorian Season 3 just started. First episode was awesome. Everyone over there is super excited. And a special congrats to them. They'll be reaching their 200th episode next week. So big shout out and praise to the guys at Sarlacc Digest. And congrats on 200 wonderful episodes. Look forward to 200 more at least. So go on over Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube. That's the Sarlacc Digest. And Lisa says to check out Dickens YYC if you want to check out Canada's hottest and hippest nightclub / venue. Sloan is playing there on March 9th. Remember those guys? Love that band. So yeah, go see Sloan if you're anywhere in the neighborhood at Dickens. And you could also check out all their live streaming action at Dickens YYC on Twitch. Matt Fisher suggests that you check out the Red Cross Blood Donor app. It's free and easy to use. Find a location, schedule an appointment, donate some blood. It's the right thing to do and the right way to do it. So donate today at the Red Cross Blood Donor app. Kate over at CureThreads.com has a wide range of original artwork that she's created that is very Cure themed. You want to go on over and check out. There's always new stuff popping up over there or stuff that you missed last time that you browsed. Go get yourself some candy striped leggings or maybe some Love Cats patterned socks. The wide range of products over there is mind blowing. It's fun just to browse, but a lot cooler to buy. So go on over to CureThreads.com and also check out hashtag Artists of a Lost World, where you can continue to post art inspired by the 5 new Cure songs. And of course, can't forget Chaz over at 17 Second Shirts. When he posts a new design, be sure to jump on the pre-order over at 17secondshirts.bigcartel.com. And you can follow him on Instagram at 17_seconds to, know when these new designs are popping up, so you will be there and not miss out and look good for when these Cure shows get announced. And if you're a listener of Chaz's other podcast, the Excommunication Station, they have started up a Patreon now too, so go on over and check out his Patreon and help out if you're a fan of the show. Lots of goodies over there for you if you subscribe. All right, speaking of Patreon too, I just posted a new bonus episode in the Holy Hour one, so go on over if you want to hear a little New Order talk. So waiting for you. Every month we try to post a little bonus episode there, some chit chat for you along with other goodies. Check it out at patreon.com/The Holy Hour Podcast. Thanks again so much to Francisco and Tom and Antonio. And of course, you guys for listening. Be sure to subscribe on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, so you don't miss a new episode of The Holy Hour Podcast. And you can follow us on Instagram at The Holy Hour Podcast. And be sure to go over to the Facebook page for this episode in particular. We'll post a picture, a screenshot of Tom at the Trilogy shows that Francisco actually tracked down with his wonderful detective work. Actually, based on the information he said, he was able to spot Tom and send us the screenshot. So that was pretty rad. And we'll put those Trilogy interviews and outtakes on there, as well as the Crystal Ball video that Francisco mentioned seeing back in Colombia when he was a wee lad. And of course, that Nick Wickham product reel of all his amazing concert footage that he has shot over the years. So lots of good stuff to be checked out on the Facebook page, or you can always just email me directly, gavinconnor@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions for the shows, comments, or questions, always have an ear open for you guys, so email me anytime. Lots of fun stuff on the horizon, so stay tuned. We'll check you out next time. Talk Hard.